stand for the pledge of allegiance, please?
Because the department heads are supposed to be management.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You got to watch what you say.
And I did. I chose my words carefully. But what did I say wrong?
Good evening, and thank you all for coming.
You defended the school, saying that you could do it.
The first couple items
And that's
on the
not
agenda
necessarily
are the
true.
approval of the minutes.
Can you prove that?
Can you
Yes.
prove yours?
Yes.
I want to see it all.
We start with April 22nd, 2013.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from April 22nd, 2013.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Farrell, seconded by Selectman Robinson. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries. The next set of minutes are April 29th, 2013.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from April 29th, 2013.
And I'll second.
Motion made by Selectman Farrell, seconded by Selectman Robinson. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. The minutes for August the 26th were not completed, so the third set we skip. The next set of minutes are September 3rd, 2013.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from September 3rd, 2013.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Farrell and seconded by Selectman Robinson. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. The next thing on the agenda, and after the advisory board meeting last week, the percentage for cuts that was recommended from the advisory board was 30%. It was also recommended that this would take effect November 1st, 2013. So basically, we just need to, again, it's a formality, but officially notify all the departments townwide to prepare for a 30% budget cut, and also for the appropriate places, the unions especially, but just to give all employees a heads up who may get it, may be affected by it, the possibility of layoff notices. Again, this is just, I hope it doesn't come to this, but we need to be prepared. And as I had mentioned at the advisory board meeting, that a 30% cut on some departments, especially the smaller ones, which mainly all the financial departments, is you have two people there. It'll be really hard, and it almost decimates those little departments. I mean, you have two people, you have, an assistant, and you have them already on reduced hours from 2012. It'll be really hard. You may end up with offices open one day a week or maybe 2 days a week, because we will be, from July 1st till then, into the budget, and then cut 30% from that. So if we have to go that direction, it will hurt and it will be hard, but we need to be prepared for it. And again, this is a formality just to officially notify all the departments of what to be ready and for when. Okay.
The only comment that I wanted to make regarding this is, and the reason also that it's a 30% across the board to give them notification is because only the town meeting can really pick and choose how much, this department's gonna get cut this much, and that we don't have the power. The Board of Selectmen only has the power if it's going to be across the board, the same for all departments. So that's why, even though it doesn't really, as Jeff said, we can't really cut some of the smaller ones by 30% and still have a functioning office. It's just that we don't have the power to notify them of anything other than the same across the board cuts at this time. And that if it came to that point, it would ultimately be up to special town meeting to decide the individual line items to get cut and from what budgets.
So I will make a motion that we notify all department heads to prepare for a 30% budget cut to go into effect November 1st, 2013.
And I'll second that motion.
Motion made by Selectman Farrell, seconded by Selectman Robinson. Any further discussion by the board on this? It's really just a formality, and just to give a heads up.
I would like to say something. I agree with,
No. Yes.
Okay. I agree with Selectman Robinson. The law is that we can only notify department heads if the percent for all departments is the same. We cannot, at this point in time, notify people that one department is going to be spared a cut and another department is going to take a 30% cut. So it has to go through this process.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, what form would you like that notification to take? A letter, an email, memorandum?
I think email memo would be,
Email memorandum to each department head.
we use technology and letters and stuff, takes time and costs money, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Chief? So,
I just would like to know whether the board's considering setting up any committee, maybe with the advisory board, Mr. Rittery. Is there any type of committee or plan to, maybe to attempt to consolidate your smaller departments in an attempt to save more money affecting some of the other departments less? There must be some merges that could be made, and we could save money in different ways instead of just saying everybody take 30%. Well,
you read my mind,
okay.
which may be scary. But, yeah, there is that thought. Has there been a formal discussion? No, but it is a thought that I've had, and I believe the town coordinators have thought of that, as well as the advisory chairman. And it's something that we can do rather rapidly. I'm hoping to have the town hall meetings next Monday and Tuesday, or either one of those dates, because this room is available for that. We just have to let the school officially know.
I'd be
we
glad to
want have it.
volunteer my
But,
services to sit
but
on.
no, it'd be department heads and stuff to, informally, kick that around, and when you come up with something, then formally present it. Because the advisory board stated, they're glad they didn't have to, pick and choose. And I really wouldn't want to pick and choose. It's hard, and if we have some ideas, we can move things together that we can do at this point in time. I'm all for that. So, yes. So,
I just want to go on record and remind everybody that there are some of us who have already, our departments have already taken a 12.5% cut. So you add the 30% on top of that, and that makes
Yes.
it a 42.5% cut. I know you know this. The second thing I wanted to say is, you take something like my department. I've been out for 3 months. I just came back to work today on a disability. And had I not been out, and had I not been on disability the last 3 months, 30% would have cut my 14-year person here, 14 years for the town, enough to make her lose her benefits. And I think the committee's a great idea, and I'd love to volunteer for it too, because, are we taking into consideration anybody's longevity here before we sit there and say, oh, well, we'll cut this person 30%, but the person who's been here 28 years or 30 years, we're also gonna cut them? And I know it's up to town meeting.
it's, all right, it's an across-the-board notification right now. A lot of things can happen between now and then. And again, when the money transfers and things have to be done, that is the job of the taxpayers. But, all right, Will?
Yes, I want to take and say two things. One, I totally agree with the police chiefs, because we have already talked about some level of consolidation, not necessarily now, but we had talked about it in the future. This is just pushing it further. The other thing is, when you talk about the 30-day cuts and notifying the department heads, my recommendation as one individual would be that you end up giving them a week or so to do that, because if you drag that on too long, then you're going to end up having a problem of not notifying them in time for the November 1st, because everything that has to be compiled into one time.
Okay. I'm gonna end the discussion now, because this is, I know it's an emotional issue and it's a great thing, but like I said, this is a basic, responsible thing to do, to give heads up, and, people can, they know starting tonight, possibly expect this. Hopefully not, but, it's just something that we need to do. So, a motion been made and seconded. Julie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. All right. Next item is to set a date for the override ballot question to take place. According to the town clerk, this has to be done, it needs to be 35 days. I believe the state, the absolute minimum is 33. The sweet spot is 35 days. And I ran these dates by the town clerk and the day, and she's in agreement that it's a Tuesday is a good day. And it was just my throwing this date out there because it's 35 days. Would be a Tuesday, October the 15th, 2013. That would be for the ballot election. It's a Tuesday. People are used to elections on Tuesdays, and it fits the time frame that we have. Again, the minimum, she said the state would, go 33, but 35 is best. She needs a few days. She has to have the question. She needs time to have the ballots printed, and it has to be looked at by the state and everything. So that was my thought of the date. If any other member of the board.
This works out with the school as well.
I ran this by. She said all they need is an email or phone call or both in the morning. I spoke with Ruth Miller, the superintendent, and her secretary, Sue Arney. These are the dates, the date you're looking at, it fits the time frame. It's a Tuesday, normal election. They just need to know yes or no. So,
Would it be in the high school gym?
I believe that is, no, we just generalized it, right? Locations? No, I think it's the high school
I'm pretty sure
gym.
it would be the high school
Gym.
gym. It isn't final because we haven't booked it, but
Yeah,
the intent is to hold
I
it
see.
in
Yes.
the high school gym.
so, yeah, it would be there
Okay.
because of the new gym floor, I know that one thing. So,
All right, I will make a motion to set the date for the override ballot election for October 15th, 2013.
Second.
motion made by Selectman Farrell, seconded by Selectman Robinson. Any further discussion of the board on that date? Hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. All right. Done. That's done. The next thing on the agenda, is to discuss the dollar amount and the basic question, and hear from the advisory board on a recommendation on the override figure. Again, if you happen to watch it on the cable station, or if you were at the meeting, you may already know the recommendations. The two numbers, I believe it came up, was the basic 551, which is the minimum amount for the school assessment, and a larger figure of $750,000, which would be the school's increased assessment, which is, is a town bill. It was voted at the joint town meeting on August 22nd. The additional funding would be to reinstate some money that the town employees lost back in 2012 and continued in 2013. And Mr. Spring will speak on this in just a second. I believe there's also an effort, it would be money for a step increase. A lot was made about, school employees and this, that, and town employees. Well, the town employees, not all of them, but a lot of them live in Templeton. They deserve a working wage. They deserve to be able to take care of their kids, and their children should not suffer on these budget cuts, which is why I would be in favor of the $750,000 larger number to put back, give them back the wages that were lost through the cuts through 2 years. As a general note, I was speaking with the superintendent at a Saturday barbecue. She also thought that the town should go for the $750 and not just the basic $551. So if anybody, thinks that going for a larger number other than the $551 might hurt the chances, at least those are two people that that are in favor of it. So before you speak, Mr. Spring, do you?
Oh, I'll wait.
All right, so, the advisory board chairman is here, and I can speak further on the
Yes.
dollar figures.
I'll try to take and make, I know you have a full agenda, and I thank you for allowing me to at least come and make our recommendations. In your packet, you have a number of things that we provided, and if any citizens want to take and end up seeing this document, we'd be glad to provide it, and also where we actually got the information. Under Mass General Law 39, Section 16, and Town Bylaws, Article 4, Section 4 and 5, we make these recommendations. If you look at the first thing, is a chart, it's just a quick reference to that, is that it'll show you the continuing spending that was going on from 2008 through 2012, and using both stabilization and free cash. That's one of the reasons that we had to make the cuts in 13. The next sheet in is to end up showing you that we ended up having what the shortfall was and what the options were, which you're all aware of, and I won't go into those. Probably the most important thing is the packet we had for the budget cuts and how we came up to that. We ended up looking at the beginning budget, and we ended up making assumptions on a monthly basis as to how much, especially in salary, that would be used out. Unfortunately, because of the 35 or 40 days, that takes us into October. So you have to look at the 4-month balance, and to what that entails is that you will have to make the 30% cut on that. That projected is right now is about $539,000, and that's all departments. There are some things that we know that we should not be making cuts to. That's veterans benefits. If we make cuts to veterans benefits, it comes off the cherry sheet next year. So you're robbing next year in order to take and satisfy. Same thing with insurance. The only other thing is the possibility of library. We still left that on there. That's really not up to us to end up saying that, because people would lose the ability to end up going to other facilities for the library. Probably the most important one is the next section is the FY13 employee hour return and COLA raises. We took the hours that were cut, projected as to getting those hours back, and if you look at the bottom line, it really, It gives you an estimate here of restoring those cuts, probably in the $60,000 range, being on the safe side. The most difficult portion of this was to end up looking at COLA raises. Why do I say that? You have union contracts that you have to end up looking at. You have a salary matrix that is 3 years old, that it should have been updated by this time, and the fact that you have a number of employees that are maximum step. Maximum step would require us to if we don't end up moving that matrix up, to go before town meeting, to end up moving them to the next grade. Using that figure, we estimate that you need in the vicinity to get COLA raises about $130,000. If you take the $60,000 for return hours and the COLA raises, that's $190,000. That's how we came up with the $750. The last thing in the packet is we talked about pyramid override options. One of the things I wanted to take into pointing out is that I know what the chairman said, but here's why 561 is not the actual bottom line number we should go for. Why do I say that? You need the 561 to get that money back. But we don't have any money in the budget for going to a ballot question. That's $5,500. Our town clerk has already made that presentation to us. To take and have a special town meeting, you're talking about another $2,000 to $3,000. You add all that to the 551, now you're talking 560. We also said, okay, what do we do step? There was a lot of discussion on that. We listened to some discussions that might be confusing. That's why you have the 650 number if we just did the hourlies coming back. To get the hourlies and the COLAs to end up at least staying in step with what is happening within the school budget of getting step raises. That gets you to getting those hours back and the step raises at $750,000. Lastly, and if I may approach to end up giving you the actual copy of our recommendations, I will read them out so people can end up understanding them.
Thank you.
This is the actual vote that was taken in the motions. On September 4th, the advisory board voted the following recommendations to the Templeton Board of Selectmen. Recommend the Board of Selectmen, and you've already done this, instruct the town department heads to notify employees plan for 30% cut to departments effective November 1st if no Prop 2.5 override is approved before that date. That's, if you end up not doing that, notifying now because of the union contracts to 30 days, we get into the next month, which we probably wouldn't be able to do it in November, so the cuts become more drastic. Our next recommendation is recommend to the Board of Selectmen that Prop 2.5 override in the amount of $750,000 be submitted to the voters at both a special election and special town meeting. The $750 is recommended to restore hours cut in prior years' budgets and allow money for COLA increases. This does not include monies for any new positions, nor does it include any money for Templeton Stabilization Fund or free cash. Lastly, recommend the Board of Selectmen begin the process of setting dates for both the special town meeting and special election with the intent of seeking voters' approval for 2.5 override in the amount of $750. As you can see, that's submitted by the scribe, Templeton Advisory Board, Mark Barrio. So that's, is there any questions I could end up answering? I'd be happy to answer those to either the board or if there's questions from the community.
Board have any questions? Yes, Bob.
Bob, 17 Main Street, is that 750 recommended override, does that include positions that were eliminated last year?
No, it does not.
Thank you.
Yes.
The $750,000, is that going to keep our essential town employees
can't say about 5 years, we can only talk about this budget process now.
But that's about how long they're paying for this.
I'm looking at, this will at least get them their 40 hours back, their hours back, and give them a COLA raise, and try to end up retaining those employees that we presently have. If we take budget cuts, we're going to lose a lot of good employees.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my next question is there a line item within that $750,000 where a portion of those funds are gonna be used to renovate that school down there for your selectman offices?
That's what?
Is there a line item within that budget, of $750,000 where there's gonna be a certain portion of funds used to renovate that school? that old
No,
school?
there is nothing, there's nothing in that.
So there's no building improvements, it's just. a
There is
school.
nothing in that budget. And by the way, renovation of that school was done in the Conservation Preservation Act. That was recommended by the advisory board. That has nothing to do with the actual tax rate or whatever. That's money that's already sitting there, and there's well over $1 million that between what the town has and what is the state has in matching funds that we have received in that community to do that type of preservation.
And my next question is, if we do approve this $750,000, what steps are we going to be taking to replenish some of those funds so that we don't have to go for another override next year? Are we looking to consolidate departments? Are we looking to get rid of some of our assets?
To answer that question from the advisory board standpoint, yes, we are looking to take and end up consolidating, and also the fact that we would end up having 2.5% increase next year. Hopefully that would start to put some money back into stabilization and free cash. We don't know what free cash is until we certify the budget for this year.
So if we do approve that $750,000, you are looking at putting some money towards the stabilization?
You're gonna have to speak up.
No.
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 Okay.
I don't have a question, but I just have a statement, and I made this at our last Board of Selectmen meeting, so for those of you that were there, I apologize for the redundancy. But, excuse me, my primary concern, this is the only, I hesitate slightly with the $750,000 number. And the reason is I obviously believe that our employees deserve cost of living increases. I believe that they deserve step increases as well, and a new matrix. However, I know that with every, $25,000, $50,000 that we tick up the amount, we're gonna lose a few votes. My number one priority as a selectman is to make sure that we can keep the police, fire, EMS, and the town employees that we have employed. I don't think that many town residents would see it as a push to restore the hours that were taken as part of the budgeting process over the last 2 years. And to bring our employees back to full-time, be open on Fridays again, and that would cost, with about $60,000 if you add the costs in there. What makes me nervous, and again, let me reiterate that I would vote yes for a $1.5 million override, but what makes me nervous is those votes that we're going to lose by including the cost of living increased, and I think that it's warranted, and I think we know the history this town has on passing overrides, and that's what makes me nervous and pause about that amount. Is it going to be so razor thin with passing that we're gonna end up kicking ourselves for asking those cost of living increases when we're laying off employees? And that's, and again, I think it's deserved, but that's where I hesitate.
Do,
I understand your concern about the amount of an override. I haven't supported an override for a while because I didn't believe that there were checks and balances in place to assure that the money that was raised would be spent properly and would be accounted for. I do support the number of $750,000. There will always be people who just simply can't afford it, and that is reality in Templeton. I look at this override, it's desperately needed, and it's a long shot. I'm not gonna pretend that it isn't. I think we can justify every penny of $750,000. Our hand has been forced. We have to ask for an override So I think we should ask for what we can justify, and I believe that number is 750,000.
My last thing before, we, vote on the wording and the amount. Again, I was at Senator Brewer's barbecue on Saturday. I spoke with Superintendent Ruth Miller, and the override figure came up, and I was kind of torn between which way to go, because you don't want to go, with a higher number and hurt the chances of it passing. And that's what I told her. I said, I think we should go for the 750, but we definitely need the 551 to pass. And by upping the number, I didn't want to hurt the chances of it passing. And she looked at me and said, you can't go for the 551. You need to go for the 750 because the town needs it. The superintendent, wishing that we go for the higher number. And she said that she would do all she could to pass this on to the parents and to try, get as many people to support this. And these town hall meetings we'll be having, we'll push that out there to convince people that not only is the 551 needed, but the 750 is the needed number. And we have the school superintendent telling me that we should go for the higher number and not hurt the chances of just the school assessment passing, then I would be inclined to support the higher number, because it is needed, it's needed for the town, and it will go to those specific things, the general operation of the town. That would be the town employees' wages back, and that doesn't necessarily have to mean that we open back up on Friday. They can work longer hours per day. That also makes it easier for people when they get off work to go into an office, if it's open after 3 o'clock, 1 or 2 days a week, or whatever it may turn out to be. We just automatically don't have to go back to Fridays being open. And it would be for their step increases, which I said they deserve. A lot of stuff was said during the override, disagreement, argument, discussion, however you want to word it, that, school employees, they deserve, to make a good wage and everything. And like I said, the town employees and their families deserve a good wage too. And I think that's the biggest argument that we can make for this number. So, for the override ballot question,
Are we all done, sir? Chairman, are you all done? No,
yes, I'm
Okay.
done with you, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Commissioner Speak.
go ahead.
I would just like to bring to the board's attention what is at risk. I understand the finances, I understand $750,000 will help us, but I think if you go to your town employees and ask them, would they rather have a raise or a job, they're probably gonna choose the job. You haven't approached the department heads. We've been given a figure by Mr. Spring last week, what 30% is gonna do to our budgets. I'm gonna tell you right now, I've done my budget. 30% is gonna be 50% of my police officers. 5 full-time officers will lose their job if we lose. I say go for the 560, get the sure thing, keep us working. If we lose, the outcome is gonna be devastating to this community.
No, just call.
We're gonna, we can't be talking about this all night. It's an emotional issue. There's gonna be, town hall meetings, to kick this around. It's a hard thing to do. That's what we get elected to do, and make these decisions. We're gonna have to do, a lot of work. I hope if we have these town hall meetings, there are some police officers here, some highway department workers will show up, and they can stand up and say, I'm the guy that's gonna get laid off. I'm the person you've seen on the street, you've seen at the schools. I'm the guy that's gonna get laid off. The highway workers, and the other small departments. Uh, And I think that's the best thing we can do, and is put the word out and give the reasons. And hope for the best. As I said, the school's saying, don't go for the small amount, which hurts the chances. But I think the number that is needed is the 750, and that's the number that I would support. Having said all this, I would entertain a motion for the override question. Shall the town of Templeton be allowed to assess an additional $750,000 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of the general operations of the regional schools and the municipal government, and real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of the general operations of the regional schools and the municipal government for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2013.
So moved.
You're not allowed to speak at all?
We have a motion made. Do I have a second? I will second the motion. The motion's made and seconded. Is there any further discussion from the board on the motion?
I would like to comment. The difference between an override of 500,000, 550,000, and 750,000 is not going to make or break the override.
You don't know that.
It won't.
There's already been discussion on this.
And you won't let anybody discuss it.
Well, I believe I have the floor and have been recognized by the chair, and I think you're out of order and rude.
Hey, can you please, I know this is an emotional issue, please calm down. There is a motion that's been made and seconded, and there is discussion on the motion. So just be patient.
The difference between the 750 and the 550 is approximately 50 cents on 1,000. People are either going to vote for the override or not for the override. 35 cents.
$70 on a $200,000.
Okay.
No, sorry, maybe didn't know.
Please don't, okay? Either people are going to support an override or they're not. And that's just the bald-faced reality that we're looking at. We can justify every dollar amount that we are requesting. And this board, and the advisory board, will make sure that the amount will be spent where it's supposed to be spent, where it needs to be spent. For years, this town has done without. We've scrimped and we've lived within our means. Our means are not enough. It's not enough to protect the citizens of our town. It's not enough to protect the vital services that you need.
Ken?
I just want to say that the town's already voted no several times on an override for 691. So to me, it doesn't, to ask for 60 grand, $59,000 more than what was already voted no several times just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Like I said, I support asking for more than 551, maybe 625, an amount that would bring back the town employees, but to risk our vital safety. And make no doubt about it, if this override fails, it will mean permanent changes to the way we function as a town, possible receivership. I mean, there are huge consequences for this override if it fails. So to risk that for cost of living increases, no matter how warranted they may be, I think is irresponsible.
Sue, you had your hand up?
I deal with a lot of houses in foreclosure and pre-foreclosure. I'm just begging you, please. It's okay to substantiate getting our 5 hours back, because there was only, 6 department heads who got cut, and what did we say, 60,000, maybe that. But I'm telling you right now, if you even are
Yes.
Brian Kuchar, 101 Bray Road. I work in a different town as a police officer, and I'd like to know why you haven't gone to the other department heads to ask the chief of police, what do you need to keep the guys you have there now? Not to get a raise, not to get more money, what do you need to keep the town safe? Because when it comes down to it, just from a police standpoint, when you lay people off, you lose half your police department, people are gonna go nuts, people's houses are gonna get broken into, and you're not gonna have the luxury of calling another town to assist, because you don't have somebody working already. You're gonna have to rely on the state police who are in Athol, or they're in, way on the other side of the state, to come here to do a job that we could pay somebody to do. I think that going for the override of a higher amount is not gonna happen. And I think that if you go for the lower amount, and you keep the services you have now, we'll be better off. And I think we have a better opportunity to get the override if you do go for that lower amount.
Phil, and then Phil first.
Phil Legere, Health Director. Just want to make one point as far as employee steps. The cuts that were made 2 years ago were not done equally across the board. Other employees got their steps, got their COLAs, whatever. Those that were cut 2 years ago, and we were level funded this year. I understand your economics. The thing is, when the cuts were made, they weren't equal. And that's really what's hurting those of us that were cut. They weren't done equal. However, if no override passes, and we go over that cliff, you're not coming back. And that's gonna be really sad, because you have some really good workers here. We're in the service industry, you can't do our job from India, can't do it from the cloud. Until you do, you need real people, you need professional people, you need trained people. If the override doesn't pass, we're gonna have to find other work. That's just the way it is. You're not gonna pay my mortgage. But the biggest thing is the equality. The cuts 2 years ago were not done equal. If you took a 10% across the board, every department, fine, but you didn't. You singled out the non-union workers and you cut them. And that's where we've been for 2 years. I don't know the answer, except you need to balance your budget, you need some funding, because this is your common good, this is your business. And we work for you, and we still want to work for you. However you do it, but if you cut us, we're gonna have to find other work. We have to survive, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you.
Knowing the recommendations that were made by the various boards back in May and the override votes that have happened since May, are the boards fully confident that they have a strategy in place to ensure the success of this override?
I don't have a strategy to make sure the 551 would pass. Because you can't force the voters, you know.
I know we can't force the voters, but at least we need to be doing everything that's within our power to ensure that we are not looking at a 30% cut. And if that means a lower amount, if that means more meetings, if that means standing on the column with signs, are the boards confident that they have a strategy in place to ensure success of the town?
We can do as much as we can do to try, because that's all you can do is try to convince people of it. Overrides, they generally pass at town meeting, where people look at you, but in the voting booth, they tend to fail because nobody's watching. That's
But
my
if you
thought
really
on it.
feel in your heart that the town needs this, do you have a plan to achieve it?
I mean, to make it happen, there's a plan, strategy to try as hard as we can try, but could I guarantee that it will pass? No. Do you want, Virginia?
If you wouldn't mind, I personally, before you take the vote, would like to hear from some of the other department heads to see how this is gonna affect their department. I mean, we've heard from the police chief, but if there are others willing to talk about it, I think that might be helpful.
Well, like the two-person office, like the finance stuff, the assessors,
Well, we've got Bud here, we've got the fire chief here.
and,
Like I said, I completely, Julie, Mrs. Farrell, I completely understand your logic and your reasoning for it, and Mr. Bennett, you haven't spoken on the issue, but you seconded it, so I'm assuming. But I just honestly would, especially from hearing from the town employees who would be benefiting from the COLA raises, asking us not to request those funds on their behalf. I just don't know why. I mean, obviously they're not all here, but the ones who have come and spoken do not want us to ask for that money on their behalf. So I would just beseech you to consider that when deciding your vote. If they don't want us to ask for those raises for them, then we shouldn't. I mean,
Point taken. But
The problem I have with going for an override for the 551, it's not gonna fix the problems we have in this town. Now, I understand about the COLA raises and whatnot. I really don't care if I get a raise, but I do support the $750,000 override to fix our problems. Keep the employees we got, restore the hours. I don't think any employee is gonna be begging for a raise. Whether that raise is, I know you all talked about putting some raises out there, but we've got other problems besides raises. You know, we got town buildings, town vehicles. There's a lot to fix in this town. I support the $750,000. It's to come back next year and say, oh, by the way, we need another override. You know that's not gonna happen. It's hard to pass an override in this town. But the numbers that have been worked on by the advisory board, by discussion at different meetings by the board, that's the number we need to fix the town and get the town back up and running again. We're not gonna be running fast, but at least it's gonna give us a little boost. And Ken, that's what I support. I don't care about the raises. Put the money in better places if we have to, but support the $750,000 override. It's time we fix this town.
Selectman Farrell, would you consider amending your motion?
I will consider amending my motion.
Do you want the
wording might help.
wording, or just, I just
Actually,
wrote it.
I'm gonna break with the departure, if you would allow me some latitude. All of you in here, raise your hand if you think the override should be $550. Can you take account while we do this? $550?
The override, 551,000, the minimum required for the school assessment.
Okay. All right.
The 750,000. I wish this was a town meeting, we passed.
It's an opinion. I couldn't vote anyways, but it's an opinion.
All right, 625. All right, that one's out.
sorry, thanks.
All right,
Well, that did not clarify anything.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just interject one thing. The advisory board gave you two numbers. Why did we give you the lower number and the other number? Because those are, as far as we were concerned, were the only two numbers that should be presented before the voters. And to let the voters actually end up voting on both of those.
okay.
They have a choice, either the 560 that we recommend or the 750. With the understanding what each of those would bring.
All right, they won't, I know it won't.
No.
Yes,
I'm in favor of the 750. I think it's about time this town got back on track. We've needed it for very many years. I think we need to go for it, and I think we need to just fix the employees' hours, do the raise, and move forward. We're not gonna come back in a year or 2 years from now and ask for another override and get it passed. It's just not gonna happen in
I
this
know.
town.
And I'm gonna see you out there on the common waiting area.
I'll be
Okay.
and this is why Mr. Advisory Board Chairman said he was glad he didn't have to do this.
Absolutely right.
Well, Mr. Selectman?
Do you want to amend the motion? All right, that wasn't gonna work,
Yeah.
so,
I,
Do you want the wording?
yeah.
here.
That's the, for this part, that
Okay, so just read all of it with
This is what I this line here goes in that way. And it was Please,
I will move that the override ballot question should read, shall the town of Templeton be allowed to assess an additional $560,000 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purposes of the general operations of the regional schools and municipal government for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2013?
I will second that motion.
all right, we have an amended motion for an override of $560,000. Right?
Same thing.
The employees are saying go for the 560, the 551. So, well, yeah, we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah.
We have a motion.
And it's been seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion, Selectman? Bev?
I sat in this room the night that we had to make changes to the departments in our town. That was one of the hardest things I ever did, because I affected people's lives. We have taken the people that work for our town, the ones that aren't union, and have asked them to do the same work for less. They've done that. One person left this town's employment because she couldn't do it. Everybody else stuck it out with us. I do not think the difference between 551 and 750 on the tax rate is that big. And I don't see why these people are going to have to work for less money any longer. They are as valuable as anybody for the school. We tried to tell you what would happen if we went this route. The buck was pushed, and now we either have an override or not. They can't make people decide what to do, but they can say, explain it, this is what this will get us. And I think that if an override is gonna pass at all, it should be for 750, because you're not gonna get another one. I've lived here long enough. But when people really know that they're not gonna have their fire department, and Bud isn't gonna have his guys out there plowing, and when he wants to go see what's going on in a office to figure out his tax bill, you want somebody there. And nobody can live for nothing much longer, not today. Nobody gives a damn when your oil bill comes, if you're making enough money or not. So we are where we are. And I say, we go for the 750.
Excuse me a second. I'm gonna pick on a town employee. Luann? You'll be affected, if this fails, or possibility of you being affected through the budget cuts if either override fails, doesn't matter the number. And you're not a department head, you're an employee, an administrative worker. Just curious if you have any thoughts on this that you would care to share.
I've been with town, I'm going on 15 years. We took the cuts, we hadn't had the raises, and we dealt with that, we were told 2 years ago we could take the cuts. And we understood that and we took it. You know, we're working at 32, 40 hours a week and 24 to 30 hours, getting our full-time jobs done part-time, all the departments are. Yes, I understand there's no money for raises, or there's no money for the $750,000. But, I really think at least
which happened not too long ago, if memory serves me correctly, where services were cut and the reality hit and they went back and voted in the money.
Actually, I believe the
So-
money was